the greatest thing to me that I love is hearing the way that you honor the artist that you have on.
Stories make the world go round. They capture our minds, pull at our hearts, and inspire change, growth, and development.
It's just your genuine human appreciation on a deep, like, soul level for what artists do. Your podcast is really dope.
I'm your host, Cello, and welcome to Bedroom Beethovens, the podcast where we discover some of the preeminent music producers and entertainers of our time, and I turn them into storytellers.
What's up? This is J-Rock, and I'm right here. I'm chilling on the Bedroom Beethovens podcast. That's what it is. Let's go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 178 of the podcast.
Hey, yo, Teeko, get on the keys and give him some of that vocoder, man.
My guest this week is...
What's up, world? They call me Teeko, coming out of San Francisco by way of Puerto Rico. I'm a musician, I'm a producer, I'm an innovator. I have been a turntablist. Collaborations was working with, Mark Ronson and D'Angelo, Heavy D, and more recently, Larry June, Jane Hancock, Tall Black Guy, 14KT, Stro Elliott, shout out to Jazzy Jeff and all of that. So there's a quick little caption for that one. But what up? I'm real happy to be here, Cello. Thanks for asking me to sit down with you and talk for a minute, man.
Yeah, it's funny that you described yourself as innovative and creative because you used to be the innovative creative one.
Wow, how did you know about that? How did you figure that one out? That's true, man. It originally was Teeko, the innovative creative one. I can't believe you pulled that card, man. How did you get that? I feel like I'm on Nardwar, where he got all the...
Coming off the heels of the Gene Brown Beatdown, where he single-handedly took on friend of the podcast 14KT, along with appearances from Tall Black Guy and Bink and Knots, we get the first interview after his bat and the first interview of 2023 with him. Producer, DJ, superhero, it's a good talk. But before we kick off this episode, if you want to support the show, maybe you're listening and you're thinking, hey, I like the show and I appreciate there's no ads. What can I do to put some money in his pocket? Well, patreon.com/Bedroom Beethovens is the website for that. Head on over there. A few bucks goes a long way. And in turn, you get to join my community over there where we chat and reminisce. And I give out access to shows a bit early. It's a good time. But I'm going to keep it really short this week because we have a lot to get into. Without further ado, let's get into episode 178 with the great and powerful Teeko.
We can feel its magical light.
But Teeko was the original spelling. I got that nickname when some of my best friends in high school found out that I was originally from Puerto Rico, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna call you Teeko." And then I wiggled that, the acronym out of that spelling. And then I used to write graffiti in high school, and I was writing Teeko. And then, that came to a halt when I got arrested for it. And then we changed. My mom doesn't know that, so if she hears this, there you go. But that's funny. But yeah, once that was switched up, I actually changed the spelling, started writing it Teeko. And then it was funny, some of my first mobile DJing that I did in the Bay Area, which was really, popular. And if you were a DJ out here, that was kind of how you got on, was either through mobile DJing or battling, and I ended up doing both. But some of the first mobile homies that I had in my mobile crew, which was Divide and Conquer, shout out to Steve Aldea, and they used to call me TKO. So it kind of merged from TICO to TKO, and then TEEKO is kind of where we're sitting now.
There's the evolution. I love it.
So
So
yeah, man.
yeah, and like you just said, you participated in a crazy event this past weekend where you went head to head with 14KT, who's been on this podcast, and you had a little battle with him. So let's run that down. So for those that don't know, is this essentially like a versus with DJs, or is it deeper than that?
Yeah, it might be a little deeper than that. So I'm fresh off the Gene Brown Beatdown weekend, and this is the morning after I just flew in. I got in this morning at like 3 a.m. So I'm fresh off of it, and this is an incredible event, man. I really got to give so much credit to Gene Brown, man. Like, protect Gene Brown at all costs, man. I really love that dude and what he's been doing for the culture. If you're not familiar, Gene Brown is one of the most notorious record dealers in the hip hop culture of all time. Every one of your favorite producers, from Dilla to Pete Rock to Q-Tip, these guys reach out to Gene Brown when they need that heat, and he's a private record dealer. So he got that reputation and had been just such a fixture in the culture for so long that he started doing these Gene Brown Beatdown events. And I think the first one was last year when he did Just Blaze versus Jake One. And so this year, I was totally blown away when he called me and asked me to get down. It's an invitational battle. So just being invited, you already win. Just being invited to get on the stage with this, that level to me was already the W. But yeah, this year the main event was Knots versus Bink, which was incredible. And then we had my brother's Tall Black Guy versus Stro Elliott, and myself versus 14KT. And, myself, KT, Tall Black Guy, and Stro, we're all very close friends that all connected through the Playlist Retreat. And that's actually where we met Gene Brown. Jazzy Jeff had Gene Brown selling records in the basement of his house during the Playlist Retreats. And he would also coordinate some of the playlist challenges and bring, the samples that we had to use for the challenges and whatnot. So, yeah, it was an incredible event. And, Super Dave East was also showcased, Lord Finesse. And then we ended up, the battle was on Saturday, which was incredible. And it was more of a showcase, man. It wasn't like, there was no declared winner. It was really kind of like we're celebrating each other. You leave the discussion for the crowd and people who watched and whatnot, and you can say, oh, this guy, this, that, whatever. But it was really, for us, it was about getting together, celebrating, each other's catalogs and what we do and how far we've come. And in a lot of ways, like my man Tall Black Guy said, like he called me on the phone and we talked before the event, and he was kind of like, you do realize that we're graduating, like this is our graduation. So that's kind of how it felt, really, and just to get acknowledged. And I knew going into it, me personally, that I was probably who people were least familiar with on the entire bill. And so I knew it was an opportunity for me to kind of, represent for what I do and kind of leave a mark. And I feel like I did that because a lot of people came up to me after and was like, yeah, I didn't know about you, but man, like we had some new fans, or a lot of respect. Even Knots, like, showing me a lot of love during my sound check, and his whole team came up to me like, yo, we got chills, just getting that kind of recognition. I think Gene knew what he was doing by throwing me in the mix, that I would kind of shock some people because I've been laying low for a minute, kind of just incubating my sound. So putting that out there on that kind of stage meant a lot to me, man. Really,
it's crazy because like events like that are really important for networking, and the fact that you can say like, well, out of everybody, I may be the most unknown out of everybody. When like 20 years ago, Jazzy Jeff at the DMC is saying like, you're the funkiest guy I've ever seen, and still it takes 20 years, and you're still kind of feel like you're not that household name yet. It's such an uphill climb, and I'm just glad that you're keeping at it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's amazing that you found that quote too. That was my first like press quote. And that came from 2003 when Jazzy Jeff was hosting the DMC finals that I ended up placing third in or something. It was the USA. But that's where we really connected. And I think that inevitably led to him bringing me to Playlist Retreat, which inevitably led to me being invited to the Gene Brown Beatdown.
And also, you just have these like serendipitous moments. Like you mentioned the retreat, T3 from Slum Village heard your music on one of Jazzy Jeff's playlists and reached out to you to work with you. So those relationships that you make through these networking events, they bear fruits, but also like these opportunities can just pop out of nowhere. It's almost like the universe kind of just gravitates you towards it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There was, and again, shouts to you for doing your homework on that one. And that turned into the Mr. Fantastic album that I was incredibly honored to be able to produce for T3, someone that you've heard his voice over the greatest hip hop beats of all time. So that really meant a lot. But yeah, absolutely. There was something that, before Heavy D passed away, I had a few phone calls with him, but there was one in particular where he gave me a message where he said, and it was amazing that he, prefaced the message with, "If I'm never able to speak to you again," and then he passed away shortly after. But so maybe, I don't know if he knew, but it's to this day that creeps me that he said that. But he was like, "If I'm never able to speak to you again," it was like, just know that, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And, one day you'll get the acknowledgement from the right people. So, I stuck to that, really. Those words hit heavy, especially coming from Heavy D.
Well, before all this recognition, I mentioned 2003, but if you go even further back than that, people don't realize like 1998 is early for like the DJ community. It's a very small community. In fact, selfishly, and I don't use that word in negative connotations, but a lot of turntablists, including yourself, probably felt like you're the champions in this niche area. Like the 10,000 hours have been achieved in a field that isn't recognized by mainstream music, and you have your own lane. And right when you're about to achieve the next level in your career, digital software comes out, and you almost have to take 2 steps back because now you can buy a program for $24.99 and be a turntablist and use SoundCloud or SoundClick or whatever. Was that like a frustrating transition, that moment in time, like in the early 2000s?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You nailed it. So yeah, it was a strange course of events because I had been in the DJ battle circuit since 1999. And then at 2003, I had advanced to the world finals. I took second place in the world. And then I came back and, started working on albums. And I released my first album in 2006. And then basically, the SoundCloud era popped up, and it opened up the floodgates for pretty much anybody to be able to upload music and put stuff out. And in a lot of ways, I was pushed back by it. And I was kind of like, whoa, like getting that cosign from Jazzy Jeff after doing the battle, or the DMC battle, was, to me, that was the road you were supposed to take to be up next. So for me, getting that cosign and winning, a major DJ competition, in my mind, I was like, cool, I'm up next. I'm part of the next class now. Especially when your OGs like a Jazzy Jeff acknowledge you in that way. But then SoundCloud came in, and it really kind of felt like a lot of people skipped in front of me. That's really what it felt like, to be honest. It just opened up the floodgates. You had new people, putting up everything, other people's music, it's completely unregulated. You had people uploading stuff that they didn't even make. And it really flooded the gates. And I felt very turned off by that. I saw more people touring as DJs on other people's music that didn't come through the culture the way that I did, which, coming and starting from where I started, that was the road that I was taking, was the righteous path. You do your work, you put in your hours, you got to stand out above the rest, and you get acknowledged by the greats, and then you rise up, to the next level. So yeah, I felt like, in a lot of ways at that period of time that I got skipped. So that forced me to kind of just take a few to just kick back, watch how this would eventually unfold. I saw a lot of problems with, the new systems, causing a lot of saturation in the game. And but there's plus sides to certain advances in technology, like Serato, and, being able to use technology for your craft. But when it comes to distribution, Now that is a very sensitive area because, in the early 2000s, and even late 90s, if you had a project and you wanted to get it distributed, you had to press it on something physical, vinyl, CD, tape, whatever it was. You had to go get you a one sheet. You had to go get a distribution deal. And then you would eventually get in the shelves. And it made it that much more special. So when it kind of got diluted by the ease of technology, and there was certain fundamental factors that were not adhered to by SoundCloud or certain platforms that would basically let everybody upload. I think that was such an issue because you really had people that were just cutting in front of everyone with no type of credential. You had no man's land instead of pro man's land. You know what I'm saying?
And did those championships kind of aid in like skipping the line in that process and being like a better name to get those things? Like, A-Track won the DMC championship in the 90s. And I forgive me for being naive, but the person you lost to, DJ Inferno, I never even heard of him. I'm sure he was a formidable opponent, but like maybe if you felt like you won that, maybe it would have greased the wheels. I'm not sure.
I don't know, man. At the end of it, I was kind of at the end of it. I was just like, you know what? There's a new champion every year. So what are you doing that's gonna, bring you that type of longevity that's gonna surpass like, oh, he was the 2003 champion, and you get that date next to your, credit. What's going to make you different? What's going to put you in a more of a long, path of longevity? And then that's literally right after 2003, the World Finals. I went to my hotel room in Germany with my brother Max Kane from 4-1 Funk, who we also, we won the team championship that year. And we pretty much made a decision after we watched a DVD from Ruckazoid, D Styles, and Mike Boo called A Night at the Knitting Factory, which was involving the Beat Junkies as well, but they were performing turntablism, music with, the whole, like a whole turntablist band. And D Styles was judging the battle in 2003 in Germany. And as I got off stage and he told me I took second place, but he came up to me and was like, yo, man, we had you for first. And he passed me the DVD. I just walked to the hotel room and threw it on. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what I want to do. Something more. I don't want to spend a year prepping a routine and then getting judged. I'd rather work on an album. And then that put me in the mode of making my first album in 2006. It came out. And then I was acknowledged by the Berklee College of Music for an Innovative Producer Award. And it was, at that time, it was one of a handful, like, 5 maybe actual all turntable albums that came out during that time. So yeah, definitely turning point where I said, I want to get into making music.
I think that's the right decision. It's really funny when I look back at this competition, and like you say, they'll have the year and then they'll have the name. I saw that a 12-year-old won 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I also make another observation. Nobody from the United States has won that competition since 2011. So then I have to ask myself, like, if preteens are winning and what you can't find anybody like super talented from the US in 12 years, like what does that indicate?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. You might be sniffing out a little bias, but at the end of it, do you want to subject yourself to a panel of judges, or do you want to present your art to the world and let who gravitates and resonates with what you're doing come to you? And so that was the decision I made in 2003 to just say, hey, you know what? I'm done with that. I got my skills up. It taught me a lot of what it means to practice and what it means to get good and put in your time. But I branched into unlocking myself and removing any type of barrier and say, let's just go crazy, creative, and record, whatever I want and do music. And so pretty much since then, I've been pretty heavy on just working on production.
Yeah, and who needs a whole year to get ready when you can put together a Boiler Room set in 24 hours?
Yeah, I did.
So this next one, always the consummate professional, but have you talked about this publicly? I saw that when Joaquin Phoenix and Ben Affleck's brother was documenting his rap debut, he actually showed up at Culver City at Dame Funk's spot, and you were there.
Yeah.
Were you in on that act? Was that all spontaneous? I can't imagine what you were thinking.
That's amazing that you know that. Man, completely spontaneous. I was at the club was named Carbon. I think, in Culver City, correct. And my brother J1, rest in peace, man, who was my first drummer in the Dollar Bin Quintet, which was a turntable drummer band that we did. And he moved down to LA, and I would go down there and DJ at his night, or it might have been Dame Funk's night, Funkmosphere. It might have been Funkmosphere. I think it was. And yeah, Joaquin Phoenix came in with a whole camera crew, and we were just like, what's going on? I had nothing to do with it. It was totally some LA, Hollywood shit. And yeah, it was bizarre. It was really bizarre, but we did witness that. And there's clips of it in the Joaquin Phoenix documentary. You'll see J1 in there at the Funkmosphere in Carbon. But yeah, that was completely random, man. I had nothing planned on that one.
But your uncle, he owned a record store in California, probably away from that, but it was like an independent record shop, right? That was it kind of seconded as a distribution channel.
It developed into the largest distribution company on the West Coast. So when I left Puerto Rico when I was a little kid, I came to California and meeting my uncle out here, and he had a record store called the Record Club in Redwood City. And I remember hearing rap music for the first time when he put me in his car, and he was working with all these like East Palo Alto gangster rap. And he was putting out these gangster rap records from EPA, and he would just blast it in his car. And it was the loudest music I'd ever heard. And he showed me how to like nod my head. He was like, go like this, and he's like moving his head and doing the head bob. And I just was infatuated with it. It was just the loudest, most powerful sound I had heard. And so, this is like, I'm like maybe 7 or 8 years old or something. And maybe when I was like 10 or so, I started working at his record store, just kind of helping him out, moving boxes around. And then maybe at the end of a work week, he would let me grab a cassette tape off the wall. And that's when I started collecting, grabbing some Too Short and Digital Underground and just getting into that. And there was a particular moment that I actually remember that sparked to me like how powerful the turntable is, where I was behind the counter at the record store, and they had a turntable next to the cash register. And I was like moving boxes around. So I wasn't supposed to be back there. I was supposed to be like, in the inventory room. And I just remember looking at the turntable, little kid, man, I probably wasn't even as tall as the counter. And I looked at the turntable, I saw all these shiny lights, and I saw the little dots that move around. And when the Technique 1200 is spinning at 33 1/3, the middle dots appear to not be moving. And I was so mesmerized by that I couldn't help it. My hand was reaching towards the platter and my finger grazed the platter, and it caused whatever record was playing, it caused the pitch to drop down. It was like, and it came back up. And everyone in the store stopped what they were doing and turned around and looked at me. And I was like, oh, like shit, I probably shouldn't have done that. But at the same moment, I felt like, wow, like I just controlled the whole room. And that was a moment that I always stuck with me of like, wow, that was so powerful. And then after that, I think, my uncle's business partner was Cameron Paul, rest in peace, who was, one of the biggest DJs on the West Coast. If I'm correct, he was the first DJ on the West Coast to blend records on the radio. And, he was the superstar celebrity DJ. And my uncle gave me a VHS called Cameron Paul Tells All. It's on YouTube. I'm pretty sure people have archived it. And it was shot in my uncle's studio. And I used to just watch that over and over and over. And it was Cameron Paul showing you how to blend records, do some tricks, cut reel-to-reel tape. And, I was just obsessed with it. So, that was the start of, I got to get turntables. I got to,
So the name Haim Zion, was that your uncle or no?
Yeah. Haim. Yep.
Haim Zion. Yeah, because TRC was just like you say, it was one of the largest distributors, and they were making millions, man. They employed over 12, 13 people in a single location. So he was creating jobs. It was like a real, and you mentioned Cameron Paul, he was a part of that. And there was
Peanut Butter Wolf.
Peanut Butter Wolf. There was the Macho Man MC Romeo and Rated X and Keisha Boom and Deshaun and all these people. So I'm sure all that stuff rings a bell as well.
Oh man, absolutely, man.
but you know it's the truth. It's on a rise. We need to open our eyes. Let's try to stop it now before it multiplies. Little kids getting in trouble. Punish them now.
Absolutely. I mean, my uncle would have parties in his house in the backyard, barbecues, and those people would be there. And so yeah, like that was huge. My uncle played a huge role in kind of bringing me into hip hop. From leaving Puerto Rico. My biological father was still is a musician and plays piano and stuff like that, and would show me guitar and taught me how to play the blues. But when I got to California, yeah, hip hop was introduced from my uncle for sure.
Yeah, I went down a rabbit hole, and like the names are crazy, and it was just what a time. Like there was a Hugh EMC and DJ X1, and they had a tape called Gangsta Knowledge, and they're pointing sawed-off shotguns on the cover, and it was just a different time for music.
That album, hard.
Yeah, the chorus for one of the songs is "Life ain't nothing but bitches and money." Imagine hearing that as a kid and thinking, "Damn, for real?"
Wow.
Sicker than the next nigga, point blank range, I'm pulling that trigger, stepping through like a maniac. This is one nigga scatter as I start to spit, spray up the whole block and I'm on the go. I don't pick and choose when I load my, I'ma rush back to the mob car, pulling out quick, sounds play, I don't care, I start punching my shit. Dipping through the cuts of a foreign territory, just smoke 5 pumps in a blaze of glory. Ditch the narcs, jet back to the hood, take off the ski mask, put up the guns. It's time to chill.
When I first heard rap, it was gangster rap. It was Bay Area gangster rap, and it was like, hard rap over funkadelic Parliament chops. And then, eventually, obviously, everything, spawned off and I got introduced to everything else, the conscious rap and the Tribe Called Quest and everything. But that was my first taste. It was in that area right there. But yeah, TRC was heavy. I remember just walking around the office. Peanut Butter Wolf worked for my uncle. They had an in-house label called New Groove Alliance that had a distribution P&D deal with TRC. And that's where, Madlib's first albums, Loot Pack, Zion I, Beat Junkies, Retmatic,
Sway,
Living Legend,
Sway and King Tech were on there.
Sway and Tech, man. So yeah, man, it was it was incredible to be around that and to be exposed to all that.
The six degrees of separation on New Groove Alliance is crazy because Del the Funky Homo Sapien was also on that, and he helped produce 29 years ago the debut album from Casual called Fear Itself.
Wow, what a connection. Which I will say, Casual Fear Itself is definitely on my top hip hop albums of all time, without a doubt.
Top 5.
Maybe. I would say definitely top 10, but yeah, pretty close on the top 5. I really have to sit there and suss that one out, but it definitely be in the top 7, 6, maybe. I don't know. It's up there though. Incredible album. Absolutely.
So you have a friendship with A-Track, and you see the inner workings of Stone's Throw. Is there a Stone's Throw overlap with your old friend A-Track because he put out a 7-inch on Stone's Throw called Enter Ralph Wiggum, or is that just a coincidence?
Coincidence. Yeah, my friendship with A-Track, we just kind of through the DJ, turntablism thing. And, he's invited me to his house, to practice with Craze and 4 Color Zach and have some sessions like that. And yeah, no, we're cool. But that was kind of more of a coincidence because Stone's Throw didn't really become Stone's Throw until Peanut Butter Wolf left the Bay and basically, took that same artist roster that he had with New Groove Alliance and took it down to LA and started Stone's Throw. But he didn't really mention that in the Stone's Throw documentary, did he? Now
he did not. And I also saw in the linear notes that he wasn't even A-Track. He was A-Train.
Oh wow, yeah, that's right. That is correct.
So
but yeah, shout out to that.
A lot of that stuff isn't even documented, so you got to go digging for that.
Right. I would love to get a little documentary on my uncle's, journey through the game, because his industry was completely affected by, when iTunes came out and just, the digital landscape affecting the physical distribution channels. It's a really interesting side of the game that's important to hear about. And, my uncle's pretty hilarious anyways. So it would be great to do a little, even if it was a little piece, But
hey, if you got some free time, man, Bedroom Beethovens and like the Beat Discovery podcast, we can grow into a many-headed beast and take over the music journalism game. Give me a call.
I like it because there's a lot of Stones No stones throw pun there, but there's a lot of stones to be uncovered. And there's a lot of stories to be told, man. That's for sure.
So it's like that moment where you're a kid and you reach up and you scratch the record, and then you mentioned your father's a musician, and I'm wondering, like, if you come from a musical family, like if you have a genetic gift for music, or is it the notion like, can I just drop any teenager into an environment where he's surrounded by records and has to take lessons, and he sees musical figures like Peanut Butter Wolf running around his uncle's store, like from sun up to sundown, you're around music in some form or fashion. And now you're, revisiting instruments in high school and you're on the turntables. It's like gang culture at that point. You can't help it. But I don't know, just because you're around it doesn't mean you're naturally gifted at it. So did you have to work harder than the next guy to eventually be mentioned in the same sentences as Qbert and Ronson? Like, was it a hard uphill climb, or did this stuff come easy?
One thing I was very careful about, I didn't tell anyone who my uncle was. I didn't want anyone to know that was my uncle, because he was distributing all the records, and I didn't, he had all these connections and this and that. I really wanted to make it a point that for me to get acknowledged based on my skills alone. So I had I was hiding the fact that I had that tie into like distribution or records or any of that. So I did it on my own, and my uncle knew that too. I even though I worked at his office just to understand and learn the game, and then I later worked at a record store called Ultrasounds that was buying from my uncle's distribution. So I was one of the head buyers, and I would order records from the distribution office. But I never really told anybody that was my connection. I really wanted to get acknowledged on my own merits and do my own work and put in my own time and find my own sound and make sure I was original, and made sure I was working and being around either nobody or people that were much better than me. And that was pretty much it. That was the code. Stuck to that until I got acknowledged.
So is it almost imperative then, like when you're grinding, that you have to get with a crew like Divide and Conquer and do 3 years of weekend work in clubs? Because I can't speak on like the youth now. I just don't see them having that work ethic.
Yeah, they don't have to. So the landscape totally changed. Like for me, there was no other way to say, DJ in front of people. Like, how do I do it? I'm doing it in my bedroom. How do I get out in front of people? And people, my friends in high school had this mobile DJ crew. So started rolling with them just to get experience. And I didn't even get to DJ for maybe the first year or half a year. I was just setting up lighting, connecting all the cables, tearing down speakers, pushing earthquake speakers, just grind work, bro. Like wrapping cables at 2 a.m. after the real DJs finished. I wasn't even on that level, but I was just rolling with the crew, waiting for my turn. And then eventually they would kind of let me play a few records before at the very beginning of the night, until I kind of earned a little respect and got my skills up. And then, I would actually get like a decent time slot. Through Ultrasounds, working at the record store, I believe connected with Scotty Fox, who invited me to DJ on the Hip Hop Chop Shop with Big Vaughn on the radio on Wild 94.9. And so that kind of, at that point, I was, slowly moving up from wrapping up cables and setting up speakers to being able to, DJ at the primetime slots or even play on the radio. So yeah, man, it was a lot of steps. I even just in this interview, it takes me back to really look and analyze the steps that I took, because I don't stop and think about it. I'm still looking at what's ahead, because there's a lot more that I want to do.
Well, here's another weird step. You get involved in jazz, and not so much jazz music, but you're hanging out with the son of John and Alice Coltrane. You're with the Charlie Hunter Quartet, but you can still rock with DJ Shadow and all the other DJs. How are you able to dip your toe in different worlds like that?
Man, so yeah, the musicality was, I think, the key. Understanding how to play an instrument, learning an instrument, practicing an instrument, whether it was guitar or piano, really helped me a lot. And then gaining the respect of these jazz musicians was everything to me at that time. And then, what happened around that era was we started developing the Controller One Vestax turntable, which was the first melodic turntable of all time that my brother Ruckazoid laid down the foundation for. And then myself and Mike Boo added some features. DJ Woody from London added some features. And these were all ideas that just sparked from conversations that really Ruckazoid would spark, and ask people like, hey, what's your dream turntable? Because we were stretching the limits musically. So how could we further this? And it came out, Vestax Controller 1. We all went to Japan and worked with the engineers out there and came out with the first melodic turntable. And I remember Mike Boo specifically kind of telling me like, yo, I can't wait to see what you do with it. Because out of all of us, he felt like I had the most musical sensibility or understanding. And then it proved to be, true. I mean, I really excelled with it. And then we got acknowledged by the Monterey Jazz Festival. I can't remember what year, but it was the 51st annual Monterey Jazz Festival that my group with the 4-1 Funk Band was invited to be the first non-jazz anything at the Monterey Jazz Festival. And we premiered the Controller 1 as a new instrument. And to this day, they now have DJs and electronic artists because we were the first ones to open up this new room that, opened up that entire space for, hip hop, electronic music to be a part of the Monterey Jazz Festival. So we kind of pioneered that and opened that door up, but it definitely took some musical sensibility, and having that turntable completely changed my career when that one came into play.
But you're the first ever turntable guy at a jazz festival, at that jazz festival. There's no one like you at an event like that. So how do you navigate that? Does the crowd not know how to respond to you? Do the artists on the bill ostracize you? Like I've been playing the saxophone for 40 years. I'm a true musician. Who's this hip hop guy? Or do you go in with a different expectation?
Well, we would incorporate musicians with our setup. So I would have a keyboard player, sometimes saxophone, sometimes, all the time live drums with that one. And there was actually, one musician in particular who also kind of mentored me was my brother Kenny Brooks, an incredible saxophone player who I think you were referring to in the Charlie Hunter quartet, because he was playing on that. He was on the Blue Note album with Charlie Hunter. I connected with him through a jam session in San Francisco where they would kind of pair turntablists with musicians. And there was a moment, I knew that in the beginning I didn't have anyone's respect, especially the jazz musicians. But there was a moment in that particular session where I had some crazy horn sample. It was like a saxophone. I think it was actually Sonny Stitt. It was a Sonny Stitt horn sample, and I was cutting it up. And then the saxophone player caught what I was doing, and we started doing a question and answer back and forth. And I was able to keep up. He would kind of take the same notes, like he heard the notes that I had access to, and then he would rearrange them. And I was able to copy what he was doing, and we went back and forth. And at the end of that night, I really earned his respect. And, from that point on, that was Kenny Brooks. And he took me, into his house, and he played all jazz records for me, introduced me to like Joe Henderson and all these cats that, and just showed me what it was to really master an instrument from that level. And he's like, charting out Coltrane charts and this and that. And so I remember kind of, going back to him after I felt like I was getting better. Hey, I could actually play a solo now on the Controller 1. Like I figured out how to do this type of scale and this and that. And I would send him little video clips, and he was like, man, you got it, So that was encouraging to, one, get acknowledged and then be supported by that. But that was a challenge to get the respect from the jazz community.
And I was hoping maybe you would do me a favor and talk about Brian Lucas, otherwise known as Swift Rock, who was a personal friend of yours, who tragically committed suicide. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell people about him that may not be familiar with him, because amidst his massive talent, maybe did you see any signs of mental health struggles? Because I'm not sure if being a DJ, grinding it out in long stretches of time, even like yourself, 3 years of straight weekends, you might not be able to have a girlfriend or a social life or unwind or take a vacation because you're trying to establish yourself. So I just want to give you the floor to kind of talk about the man known as Swift Rock.
Man, DJ Swift Rock, man. My brother, man. I miss him dearly. And we had a very unique and very close relationship that a lot of people didn't understand. Like, he was very reclusive, didn't really hang out with too many folks when it came to his personal, like, creative side. Like, he had his social life as a DJ, but absolute world champion, one of the funkiest, greatest beat jugglers, which translated in his production, which unfortunately, due to his passing, a lot of people didn't get to realize how amazing of a producer he was. But he really lacked a lot of self-confidence, like, he would come over to my house and just kind of watch me make beats, or sometimes we would make something together. But he was always kind of picking my brain and seeing what I was up to, and then he would bounce. He would leave and take that inspiration into his room. But I was always bugging him to be like, yo, man, don't come back unless you're going to play me some of your beats. Like, I want to hear what you're doing. And yeah, man, and he was, he had an incredible mind. He was learning code. He was into tech. And, I don't want people to get it twisted. Like he was mentally, there was good mental health. It was some different circumstances I believe that led to him doing, what he did to expire. But, there was certain prescription medication that he was given. I don't want to, necessarily get too much into that, but there was, he did some drinking and had some stomach issues and possible alcohol poisoning. And then they got put on this prescription drug, which, some of these side effects included suicidal thoughts. So, there's a pharmaceutical issue that I take, with that, because he was not that kind of guy that, he would have reached out if there was some really heavy like mental issues going on. I would have hoped, you never know what anybody's going through, and that's pretty much the best I could say. But he will be remembered as, one of the greatest beat jugglers, an incredible friend, and a brother. And it was just very special, man. Like, I didn't hang out with him the way, some of his friends did, like where they would just go out into parties and nightlife. Our relationship was creative, and he knew I wasn't about the nightlife thing. I wasn't a drinker. I didn't drink alcohol really. So our relationship was very much within the lines of, he would come to the studio, work on some stuff with me, maybe grab some new plugins from me. And then I knew that he was coming to me to get his cup full of inspiration. So I was more than happy to give that to my brother, So he would come through and just kind of kick it until he felt like, oh, wow, I'm inspired. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go back to my little room and be alone and make my beats that I'm not really going to play for anybody, unfortunately, but they were dope. And I heard some of them after he passed, actually, went through some of his files on the computer with his brother and his family. But yeah, our relationship was very close, and it was that. And, when you share creative, especially for him being a little, not as confident with his work. And when you share that with someone you're close with, it's a different type of thing. It's intimate on a different level of like you're out with your friends at a bar and you're all partying at the club and drinking. He had that relationship with his other homies, but with me, it was the creative, intimate side of it, man. So, but thank you for asking about him. I think it's really important to never forget, and I lost some really close people along the way. Him and, Jay one, my brother Buys one, recently, who passed last year. Swift Rock, man, forever. A true king of the culture. Zulu, Rocksteady, B-boy. Shout out to Swift Rock, man, forever.
We've covered a wide spectrum of your interests, people your abilities, and the journey. And the new year is just kicking off. So, I'm going to give you the floor. Like, what can people expect from you hot off the Larry June production and the beat battle from this past weekend? If they want more, what do you want to tell them?
Man, go lock in with me. Follow me on your socials. I put the link in my bio where all my music is at. It's hosted on a new platform called USound. I'm putting all my music there. They've announced there's a new update coming where it's really favoring the artists. I'm really excited to use it. I've been using it since the beta. So I've been putting all my music there. All my videos and everything are going there too. So it's hard on social media because no one can really cut through. So if I'm someone that you would like to connect with, hit that link in my bio and jump over there because, let's be real, Instagram is pretty trash. But it's a tool that some of us, it's a necessary evil, but I would prefer, lock in with me somewhere where it's a little bit more fair and just, and we can, more of a clean slate. So I would say follow me over there on USound and expect a lot more music. I'm holding on to way too much. I'm going to be pushing it out. All kinds of projects I've been working on. I've had a opportunity last year and continuing into this year by joining a production team called the Bass Bullies through one of my mentors, Andre Harris, the legendary Andre Harris. So I've been, working with that production team. So I expect some big things through that, some more events with Gene Brown, and just, more greatness. I'm just really trying to add value to everything that I do and everyone that I'm working with, and just continue to inspire people to, do their best and continue to challenge themselves. And that's what I'm here for, man. I'm as I get older and as more time goes by, and I have opportunities like this, Cello, to sit and talk with someone like yourself and reflect on what I've done, which, like I said before, I don't really sit and do that because I'm kind of constantly aiming forward. It's humbling, man. It's really nice to sit and kind of think about what I've done so far, but I still feel like there's so much more to do and so much more to give. And as you get older, I kind of get more into that giving back area. So I'm excited to offer more mentorship and advice and to people that are coming up. I think that was really valuable to me, being around the right OGs. So you do this for 20 plus years and such, and then all of a sudden you look around and you're like, wait, am I an OG now? So
Well,
so now I'm here to offer that, and I hope to level up the game and just continue to bring the best of what I can do and bring out the best in everyone around me.
well, definitely don't go to teekomusic.com because that website is really weird now. You let the
Yeah, it's down. It's like a yoga thing. I lost the .com, so don't go there. You can go to usound.com/Teeko Music. If you follow me on Instagram, it's Teeko Music, TeekoMusic on IG, Twitter. And I put the USound links and all those. But that's going to be my bottom line, my funnel, because that's where I'm putting all my music, my videos, my merch.
Well, I hope a part 2 is in our future soon, man. The door is always open, and I appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate what you're doing, man. I think these types of platforms are very important. Let's continue to grow it, and however I can help. And if there's other artists that you would like to talk to that I'm connected with, let's make that happen. I think telling these types of stories and documenting is so very important. So shout out to you for putting your time and energy and giving space and holding space for these types of stories where there's hopefully knowledge and inspiration for the next man or woman that's in the creative space or whatever field they're doing, just to level up and to be the best that they can, man, and help your kinfolk and everybody around you, man. So I appreciate what you're doing.